afternoon and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Arts and Culture Commission. It is Thursday, December 18th. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioners Derhovanesian.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Oshagan.
Yes.
Sharikian.
Yes.
Chairperson Deaver.
Here.
The agenda for the December 18th meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on December 15th, 2014.
Next item.
Item 2, consent items. At 2A, approval of meeting minutes from November 20th, 2014.
And do we have any questions or corrections or a motion to approve?
No. A motion to approve.
I second it.
Roll call.
Commissioners Derhovanesian.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Oshagan.
I think I'll abstain.
Sharikian.
Yes.
Chairperson Deaver.
Yes. And next item.
Item 3, introductions and presentations. At 3A, introduction of new commissioner.
Good afternoon, Chair Deaver and commissioners. I have the great pleasure of introducing Ara Oshagan as our new commissioner, as appointed by and approved by City Council, but nominated by Councilperson Paula Devine. And Ara is a long-term, he and his family are long-term residents of Glendale. He's a photographer and an artist working for over 20 years in the documentary field with many solo and group exhibits throughout the world, much to his credit. He works in many, his works are in many prominent permanent collections, including the Armory Center for the Arts in Pasadena and the Museum of Contemporary Art in Yerevan, Armenia, to name a few. He's a published author of Fatherland, a book which he worked with his father on to document the land of his forefathers in Karabakh. He's the recipient of many grants and recently exceeded his goal on a Kickstarter campaign for a newly published book, or a book that we will look forward to, merging photographs and digital music using the latest in mobile technology. Ara serves on several boards, including the Downey Museum of Art and the AYSO Region 88. I'm assuming that's affiliated with your children.
Yes.
I have had the great pleasure to work with Ara on several exhibits at the Central Library. It's always been a pleasure to work with him, and I'm so happy you're part of the commission. I might also mention his last endeavor. His son has followed in his documentarian feats, and he, maybe 6 months ago, he actually spoke. His 13-year-old son spoke to a large crowd at the Central Library related to his hiking experience on Mount Ararat. Incredible. So obviously it's in the genes, Ara. So as I said, it's with great pleasure that I introduce Ara Oshagan to all of you.
Thank you very much. And do we have any other words of introduction or comments from fellow commissioners? Or
I just need to add that he's well known to everyone in the community, but besides his father, besides all his work, I know his mother as well, and she has dedicated her life, she's a psychologist, to the community and has served our Glendale Unified School Districts for many years with counseling and special programs that she has had. So I've had the pleasure of working with her before, so I'm very glad to see him joining us.
I would like to also add, it's not just him and his father and his son, it's also the grandfather, Hagop Oshagan, Vai Oshagan, Ara Oshagan. So therefore, it's in the family, it runs in the family. And also I would like to mention that I worked with Ara for many, many years. I would say in the past 20 years, maybe more. And we worked in many different committees or organizations, and we think that art is one of the best languages to speak internationally. So therefore, we will see in the next few years, hopefully, we'll work better and we'll accomplish a lot more. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
And for myself, I want to welcome Commissioner Oshagan to our commission. I don't know you as well as some of my counterparts here, but I look forward to working with you and having you here on the commission with us. Welcome.
You too. Thank you.
Great. Did you want to? Are you?
Well, I just want to say that it's great to be here among old friends and new friends, and it seems to me there's a moment here in Glendale that we can really make an impact in the arts and culture of the city. And I am very happy to be part of that process.
Next item, please.
At 3B, Library Arts and Culture, presented by Chuck White, Community Relations Manager.
I'll give you a brief report on what's coming up at the library. The brand show In Light of Shadows continues through mid-January. Great show, 4 different artists. Gala exhibits, your program, art, temporary art in storefronts, continues. Our advisor with that group, John O'Brien, hopes to put one more show in there before we lose that property at the end of January. That's at 127 and 131 Maryland. The Brand Associates will begin their Saturday music series, and they're going to kick it off with Hike Arsenian on Saturday, January 10th at 2 p.m. at the Brand Library Recital Hall. I just want to kind of end up with another program we just started. If you're interested in e-reading, so reading books on a tablet, you can borrow one now from the library. All of our libraries have iPad minis, the nice ones, the Retinas. You can take them home for 3 weeks. You'll need you'll need a library card and an ID like your license if you don't already have a library card. I might also add that we're advertising it in a variety of ways, but really the people using these are the people who don't have them already. So I think bookmarks are going to work really well. As nice as social media is, we're getting people just walking in with our monthly December flyers going, oh my gosh, you have one of these? I can take it home. These are the people that we really wanted to hit. Some people have talked about maybe thinking about purchasing one for the new year, maybe getting one for a holiday gift. Now's your chance, if you don't have one of these, to use them. They're really fabulous for e-reading. Read books on them, read magazines. You can listen to music. We even have some classes every Tuesday. We'll have a class at the Central Library, and then once a month on Saturday, just come in and ask us any kind of questions you have. We'll show you how to use all the library e-reading resources. We've got a language learning resource on there that you can basically take with you wherever you want to go and learn whatever language you want to learn. Of course, there's magazines, there's newspapers, there's a variety of databases, but it's real neat opportunity for the community to get their hands on these things. Just bring them back. And finally, we have our regular December holiday closures. Of course, we'll be closed Christmas Eve and Christmas, 24 and 25. New Year's is a little different. We close at 5 p.m. on New Year's Eve, but 2 of our sites, because of their service hours at those facilities, they will be closed all day. So Chevy Chase and Pacific Park will be closed all day December 31. All the other sites will close at 5 p.m. and then we'll be closed Thursday, January 1st, 2015, and we will reopen the next day. Come in, get an iPad, borrow it, read a book. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Thank you. Next item.
Item 4, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not on this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The commission may refer the matter to city staff for investigation and report.
Great. And I do have one card here for Arik Gavorian. If you'd like to come to the podium, please.
Good afternoon. I got to put my glasses on. The kids always make fun of me. Good afternoon, honorable members of the Glendale Arts and Cultural Commission, and especially Commissioner O'Shagan. For the record, Commissioner Orszag and I went to college together a few semesters, and our kids are in the same class. It's great to have all of you, to see all of you, and especially you on the board. We need that caliber people. I truly thank for the opportunity to present to you a very unique event in Glendale coming in January 2015. I'm Mark Gavorkian. For the past 32 years, I've been a volunteer and a member of several community and nonprofit organizations here in Glendale, including the Arts and Cultural Commission's Grant Allocation Committee years ago, talent judge for the City of Glendale at the Civic, again years ago. I was a Children's Choir director, and I'm a member of the Crescenta Valley Prayer Breakfast Committee, Korean Armenian Cultural Festival. It will be the 4th year. Crescenta Valley Community Outreach, Home Enlightenment Glendale, and regional chapters, Davitian and Mariamian, Glendale PDs, North Comansev Family Series, just a few, so you'll understand where I'm coming from for the passion about this event coming in January. Aside that, I'm involved in promoting an internationally acclaimed movie. If you haven't heard about it, it's called Tevanik in U.S. This feature movie is about the lives of 3 youngsters and their village during the struggles and liberation of Nagorno-Karabakh. Their broken and yet promising dreams and the resilience of the villages to protect their ancestral homeland with practically no tangible resources. The mountainous Nagorno-Karabakh is an Armenian landlocked autonomous region in South Caucasus. The mission for the U.S. screenings is to raise funds for the director Jivan Avedisyan's next movie, The Last Inhabitant, the story of displaced and ravaged ethnic Armenians in Azerbaijan, slated for production 2015, a release of 2016. Director Jivan Avedisyan is a 33-year-old Karabakh native with an impressive education and filmography resume, which includes 14 documentaries and 7 feature films. He is currently the chief producer of a prominent TV station in Armenia. Tevanik screened at the Cannes Festival market and countless European countries, including Belgium, Sweden, Holland, Lithuania, France, Czechoslovakia, United Kingdom, Latvia, and Germany, and also in Canada, Lebanon, Iran, Australia, China, Georgia, and Russia. As we speak, in 2 days, on Saturday 20th, December 20th, Tevanik will screen in Rome, Italy, at the famous Cinema Venir Film Festival. It has won many prestigious international awards, including the Best Feature Film at the 11th Golden Apricot International Festival in Armenia, Best Viewer's Choice with Subtitles at the Silk Road International Festival in China, and recently the Best Screenplay at ARPA International Film Festival in Hollywood, where all the judges were celebrated Hollywood producers and entertainment industry experts. Furthermore, an industry expert and film critic, Carlos Aguilar from Sydney Buzz, wrote in August, having submitted only 4 times as an independent nation, it is difficult to predict whether Armenia will decide to participate this year. However, they do have a few films that could present them at the Academy Awards. The most feasible candidate this year for 2015 Oscars, Best Foreign Film Language contender is Tevanik. Tevanik movie's U.S. premiere will be in Glendale at Beyond the Stars Palace Theater on the corner of Brand Boulevard and West Milford on Friday, January 9, 2015 at 7 p.m. with a red carpet and reception. And then it will tour U.S. the next day to San Francisco, January 10, Boston, January 14, New York, January 15, and Washington, D.C. on January 16. Director Jivan Avedisyan will be here in U.S. during the screening to conduct meetings, meet and greet with community organizations, elected officials, hopefully every one of you, film industry experts, studios, regarding Tevanik and his next movie, as I mentioned earlier. On behalf of the U.S. Steering Committee and Hayasa Cultural Center, which is the main sponsor and organizer of this event, I extend an invitation to each and every one of you and staff and managers to join us at the premiere screening in Glendale on January 9th, and I will email you all the details today or tomorrow. I provided some literature. Unfortunately, I had color copies of everything, but didn't pan out. And additional information is also available at hayasa.org or the Facebook page. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions or comments from commissioners?
Well, I would.
Papanasian?
Thank you. I would like to commend the organization for sponsoring and promoting, because art needs to be sponsored and promoted throughout ages. Without that, it would not flourish. And and this movie, from what I understand, it also reveals what happens in the world. You know, art is supposed to be reflecting what happens in the world, and it should be a voice, and it should be a language of its own. And it, assumingly, and based on what I've understood, I'll come and see that evening. I'd have the pleasure and honor to be there, that it reflects what happens in the world. But it's done in a very artistic manner, and I really commend the committee and you for putting all your time and all the effort to make sure that it's featured properly in Glendale. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mr. Shurikin.
Thank you for coming, Arik. Question regarding the next movie that you mentioned. Can you give us a little more detail about it, please?
The next movie, The Last Inhabitant, it's regarding the struggles and massacres that happened in the early 80s in Sumgait. Actually, not 80s, early 90s. In Azerbaijan. I've been working on this day and night from the day I came back in August, and I fell in love with the film, and fell in love with the scenery and the cinematography. And Tevanik, it happens to be my son's name, Tevan, and he thought the film is made after him, and I said, no, son, it's not. It's a coincidence. It's regarding a village and how the ethnic Armenian cleansing is happening, but yet a Turkish family, an Azerbaijani family, is helping an Armenian family to be able to protect themselves. There are 4 prominent actors. One of them is a Lithuanian actress that was on the European People magazine 4 weeks ago. There is an Iranian actor, and the same actor, Soshani Begyan, and also another renowned Armenian actor from Istanbul, Turkey.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for bringing this forth, and we look forward to it.
Thank you.
And I do have another card for Mr. Richard A. Leboff, if you'd like to come to the podium, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Richard Leboff, a 35-year resident of Glendale. I am here before you today because I think you, as I'm sure, are very concerned about the fact that for this year's 2015 Tournament of Roses Parade, Glendale, for the first time in, I believe, over 100 years, will not have a float. And this is something that I think was actually first revealed, if you will, back in June, when the council was deliberating about their budgets and so forth for this current fiscal year. And it was determined that there simply was not any money for a float. In past years, as I'm sure many of you know, Rick Caruso and Glendale Adventist Hospital and persons such as myself have contributed to the float. And we know all the various iterations that the float went through all the years with Mr. Weaver and his affiliates. And we know that there is never a nonprofit 501c3 corporation formed to raise funds for the float. It was then suggested that the city take over the float, which they did last year, and they came up with the design. I don't know if this committee was involved very possibly in that, but what I feel is now necessary is that there needs to be a tweak, if you will, to the ordinance for the urban art program. If you will, I think the best way I can introduce all this is for me to read the letter that I sent to Glendale News Press back in June, because I think it more or less capsulizes, if you will, what I meant by tweaking and what very possibly could be done. And as you will see, I'm going to recommend to you as a committee that you take a proactive position when it comes to the float, because I do think it can, in fact, come under the auspices of this particular Art and Culture Commission for the city. So allow me to read the letter here. I read with interest Brittany Levine's article in the June 21st, 22nd weekend edition of the News Press. My immediate reaction was that instead of trying to create a nonprofit arm of the city to raise funds, there needs to be a re-examination of the city's urban art program. Under the current resolution, 2% of the proposed building valuation of a project or development is utilized directly by the developer, or a 1% in lieu fee is paid into the Glendale Urban Art Fund. The city needs to consider revising this resolution and both raise the percentage and allow for a portion of the in lieu fee to go toward raising an endowment that would provide sufficient funds from the return on investment to fund the float each year. The notion that a nonprofit would have this capacity is unrealistic and has previously been explored by Councilman Dave Weaver and his allies to no avail. In recent years, it has been fortunate that community donors, including Rick Caruso, Glendale Adventist Hospital residents like myself, have made contributions to keep the float going down Colorado Boulevard each year. Surely the float could qualify as art under a revised resolution. No one would deny that the city of Glendale receives positive outreach and publicity from participating in the parade. City Manager Scott Ochoa needs to convene an ad hoc committee immediately to get this moving. With less than 6 months before the float needs to be completed, the city may need to front the funds for the 2015 float. After that, private funds from developers who abound in the city these days and residents needs to be tapped. Upon further research and having talked with Mr. Wyke, is it Wyke? A few days ago, I told him that I would be here at the committee meeting today, and I was, in fact, I don't know if many of you tune into Channel 6 on Tuesday evenings, but I was, in fact...
I just want to bring your attention to the time has elapsed, so if you might want to just wrap up real quick, that would be great. Oh. Thank you.
I didn't see, has it expired?
Yeah, it has.
Is there 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Really? Yeah. 5 minutes, right. Okay. Okay, I will wrap up quickly here by saying that I went to the council meeting the other night and spoke, and I'm not going to read you everything I spoke there, but I think that there is something that this committee could do, and of course, as I said, I have researched and now discovered that you do have $2.65 million sitting in this fund, and certainly, again, the return on investment and not touching the principal, there should be sufficient funds, and perhaps I've gone through your goals, by the way, too, and looked at those, and I myself can't see why it can't come to pass that the float would be considered an activity of the Art and Cultural Commission, and that you folks would, as I said earlier, take a more proactive position toward convincing our council and doing something for the city of Glendale, because it's something
Thank you.
That's necessary.
I'm going to open up if there's any questions from the commissioners.
Yes, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much for, it's clearly a very passionate concern, and we appreciate your bringing it forth, and we work with the plan on an annual basis, so we'll certainly take it under consideration.
Well, I will be back to your committee in future months to see what progress is being made. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 5, business agenda. At 5A, action item. At 1, motion recommending that City Council approve the issuance of a call for artists for the third phase of Beyond the Box Utility Box program, using remaining funds from the program and the discretionary fund approved in the 2013-2015 work plan.
Good afternoon once again. Staff is recommending at this point that the Commission recommend to City Council the issuance of a call for artists for Phase 3 of the Beyond the Box Utility Box mural program. Phase 1 and 2, as you remember, encompass the downtown and the Montrose neighborhoods. The third phase is proposed for the Adams Hill and South Brand Boulevard neighborhoods, and funding for Phase 3 would come from the remaining balance of the program of $2,250, and the discretionary fund, which has a balance and actually there's been no expenditures in this fund, of $30,000. Both allocations were approved by Council as part of the 13-15 work plan. The discretionary fund was intended to support projects not previously discussed, projects approved in the work plan that needed additional funding, or unforeseen costs or opportunities during the 2-year work plan. The 2-year work plan is coming to an end in June of 2015. Staff has made a preliminary survey of the area and identified 38 boxes. The maximum cost of Phase 3 at $750 per box would be $28,500. However, it is not expected that all 38 boxes would be part of the program because we have not identified which ones are actually city-owned. The next step is for staff to identify which ones are city-owned and move forward. We also are recommending that Chair Lee and Chair Shirikian be on the selection committee along with city staff as they were in the first 2 phases. Moving forward will allow us to continue the momentum already gained in this very successful program. Otherwise, we would have to wait until the development of Work Plan 15-17, which is not expected to be approved by Council until the fall of 2015. So with that, questions?
Questions, comments, commissioners?
Well, as we discussed, it's a great idea, and I think we should go forward with that. Thanks for the staff for looking into it and checking every box that is available.
I have a comment and maybe a question too. First of all, it's great to see that we're implementing the 3rd phase of this kind of program. It's very rewarding, and the outcome from the community is very positive. But I would like to make a suggestion regarding the budgeting. We still have $2,250 from the previous budget, and we are trying to allocate $30,000, which is the unforeseen budget. I would suggest to limit for this 3rd phase up to $25,000. The reason I say that, to still have some type of amount of saving for the other project that we might run out of money. But I would like to see this project, the 3rd phase, on the South Brand as much as Adam Hills, but South Brand is considering more commercial and all the car dealers, and there will be a lot of people walking probably. Adam Hills, I have not seen at night or during the day really busy neighborhood walking what I mean, but this is something I would suggest if the council approves of it. I mean, not the council, the commission approves of it, then we can go that way.
So just so I'm clear and I didn't miss anything. So the recommendation of a limit of $25,000
up to $25,000, yes. Okay. Instead of $32,250.
Other thoughts, questions, comments, Commissioner Lee?
I was pretty much on the same line because I was more looking at the next item for the performing arts. There's still $7,600 left on that one, and if there's time, maybe put a little bit of that money going toward there also.
I believe, I could be wrong, but I think that would require approval from council because it'd be changing our program allocations that were approved through council to be switching between line items.
Well, that's what we're doing. Because this $30,000 is...
It's a discretionary fund, though,
correct.
So it's different than the other ones have been allocated to specific programs, but...
Yeah, if we chose to do that with the discretionary fund, we could, and we can certainly discuss that in the next item.
Correct. No, I was talking about the $5,000 left from the discretionary fund to allocate for more performing arts, so we can.
I'm sorry.
To use
I
that.
misunderstood.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I was
Okay.
thinking that way because
Gotcha.
if the performance series is doing really well, put a little extra in it, since, like I said, we don't need it all for the boxes at this point. This way both programs can flourish as an option.
Thank you.
Well, I do believe that it's a good idea because whatever the money is spent on issues that is ongoing, there are several performances, there are many boxes, there are many people who walk. So on a long term and more kind of spread out situations, it is a good idea to be able to spend the money. Thank you.
I have a question with regard to the comment about using the 30,000 for both programs potentially. What would be the timeline to figure out how many of those boxes that have been identified actually are city-owned? Because that could end up reducing it significantly right there, correct?
I may not know until after the first of the year,
Okay.
when Public Works staff, if they're on vacation, I think they are, when they come back. We identified and were for sure that the ones on South Brand were indeed city boxes. There are a number of types of boxes out there, like AT&T, counties. Some run the cables, but the stoplights and things like that. So 2 out of those 3 we can use, but staff has to get back to me and tell me, help me identify which boxes which types of boxes are which. So South Brand's okay, and I probably won't know about the rest until after the first of the year.
Ms. Cleary.
The other, I forgot to mention this, but it is in the report that there was one more box that would be included in this, and the Museum of Neon Art, which is, I think, anticipated to open in the beginning of the year, towards the beginning of the year, requested us to look into the boxes that are adjacent to their building, and so we will be doing that as well. But I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that.
If I may, we did get a word back from Public Works that those boxes are pretty much all okay. There's like 3 of them in front on Brand Boulevard and 1 behind in the alley on parking lot number 10. The one in behind, it's going through changes, so that really won't be available until maybe March of 2015. The ones in front on Brand Boulevard, we were given the go-ahead that those are indeed city boxes.
Commissioner Hovhannissian.
As far as the boxes, utility boxes on Brand, I would like to suggest, if possible, I don't know financially we can have them contribute as well, because that is an area with all the car dealers, and they are doing very well and they're very prosperous. So if we could have them, if they can financially participate, that's fine. If not, it would be great to get them included in whatever we do, so that we would have more of the arts in the city and the business kind of combined. Because to get their support and to get involved, they initiate in that, they become more kind of interested in whatever we do and the city does.
If I could ask a question.
Commissioner
Did
Suckin.
we go over budget on the first 2 phases? If I could, why is it that there's not enough funds to finish the 3rd phase, the boxes?
When we first went through the work plan, we didn't know how many boxes would be in the neighborhoods that we had identified, and so as we went along, we're trying to go neighborhood by neighborhood, so there were X number in the downtown and X number in Montrose, and that pretty much covered most of the budget.
Yeah, we hadn't set a specific amount that we wanted to run through the program, so we just did it sort of piece by piece, but so we aren't over budget, we're just sort of running up as far as we can, basically. So my question, I guess, is because what I was hearing is not only limiting the amount that would be allocated, then potentially splitting it up. If that is of interest to the commission, and we were to approve moving forward, to give you the leeway to move forward and continue the work that you're doing in identifying the boxes, and then come back to the commission when we have a better understanding, perhaps, of how many boxes there really are. I don't know if that would mess with your flow in terms of the timing of it or not, but rather than making it a decision right here about, hey, let's allocate some more towards the performance grants and some more towards to the boxes without having more information about it?
Because we know that all 38 boxes are most likely not city-owned. I mean, even if they were, the most we would spend is $28,500, and I suspect that maybe we'll have, 25 boxes, so our expenditure will probably be far below the $25,000 that you're recommending. So I would suggest, assuming, and I think it's pretty certain that we won't have enough boxes to come up to that $25,000. So I would suggest moving forward.
I have a question. Can we, by mistake, paint the county boxes?
like we already did, right? I thought we did one.
Not that now that you've announced it publicly, no.
By mistake.
But you're bringing up a good point, which is we have not found out whether that one box that we inadvertently painted that was owned by the county, but there might be some partnership opportunities in the future that we could work with the Cultural Arts Department of Los Angeles.
The reason I brought this point up because some of the boxes, county boxes, the locations are excellent for the art, and we're missing them. I would like to make at least the attempt to find if those boxes are available and we can work on them. Hey, that's a plus for us.
We're working on it.
Okay.
So another question that I have, and without getting into our next item, but since it was raised with regard to this item and the funding, is it in staff's, do you feel that there is a gap that with the performing arts grants at this point? Because I know the item hasn't been read in yet, but I think that there are some other partners potentially in that programming that maybe you would still have a full program without needing the extra funding.
For to finish off that program, we have enough money to finish off the program at Brand Library and Arts Center. Okay. They don't have the capacity to do more than 6 programs. So the only thing we might want to consider in the next item is how much we're going to extend to each performer. Because now we extend, or last phase we extended, I think, $500 to $1,000 to each performer. So we could decide with those 6 performances to up whatever the stipend is for the artists.
Okay.
Are we discussing number 2 now at the same time?
We're not.
Or we're mixing them?
It got a little mixed.
Sorry.
So
That's fine.
Yeah.
My fault.
Then this, I have a question regarding the performances. The previous performance, it was like a summer performance series. Am I correct?
Yeah. I'm getting advice that we should probably wait until the next item.
Yeah, to the extent that it fed off of the question that was asked about how we're dealing with this funding. We can talk about it, but
okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll wait.
So with regard to the funding for the boxes on, the murals on the utility boxes, do people need more information or have other questions to be able to make a motion with regard to this particular item?
I do think that
Dominasian.
if we do have the exact numbers, then we could talk about the details and the money spent, and then it's easier to decide how much is left and it's worth it to go back to the other program. So I would prefer, but I'm okay either way. I think it's wiser to do that.
So what I'm hearing is that if we could give approval today to move forward with it, probably with the limit of the 25, but that we would still want it to come back to the commission before it was implemented so that we have an understanding of the actual the specific allocation that is, so before we actually approve the full allocation. Does that making sense? But that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. That was.
So let me just clarify. So we wouldn't do the call for artists. We would come back here after we knew how many boxes we had.
In January.
Then do the call for artists after that.
Yeah. Okay. Would that give staff enough time to do the call for artists? I mean, we don't have a specific deadline that we're looking at, correct? We're just trying to get something implemented in this plan year still.
I mean, the goal is to finish this by the end of the 13-15 work plan, which would be
Enough time?
end of June.
June 30th, yeah.
I just want to.
If not, I don't see a
Commissioner Lee.
problem with doing the call for artists now. because, like I said again, it's going to be under the 25,000 anyway. So then, for us, then we can, at the next meeting, we'll know the amount. Then we just disallocate some of that 25,000 back to the
So whatever's
discretionary
left
fund.
over
Correct.
without regard to.
Yeah, we can roll it or make that a condition that whatever is not used rolls back over to discretionary fund.
I just want to add one more comment that
Commissioner Shurikian.
they suggested my name and Terry, our chair lady. I'm very honored and be part of it again. If we want to sit and select another set of artists, which is very fun, at the same time very detailed work, and we go through probably 80 artwork last time we did. It was very interesting. Yeah, I'll be glad to help again.
Thank you for that. And Commissioner
Same
Lee,
here.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll do the motion.
And I'll second it.
Could we restate the motion?
We are spending, or we are suggesting to spend up to $25,000 for Beyond the Box program, third phase, which will apply South Brand and Adam Hills area. And for the next meeting, we will have the number of the boxes which we will approve based on.
And specifically, that we are recommending or approving the funding from the discretionary fund and the remaining fund combined up to the 25,000 limit.
Chair Deaver and Commissioners, you're recommending also to City Council to approve the issuance of a call for artists.
Of course, of course.
Of course.
Thank you. So is that clear for staff? Okay. And we have a second?
Yes, I've seconded.
And roll call, please.
Commissioners Hovhanessian,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Oshagan,
Yes.
Sharikian,
Yes.
Chairperson Deeper.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 5A2, motion recommending to City Council to use the remaining balance in the Performing Arts Program budget to fund 6 performances at the Brand Library and Arts Center.
Okay, now we can talk about this one. Staff is recommending that the Commission recommend to City Council that we issue a call for artists for 6 performances at the Brand Library and Arts Center for the 2015 Summer Plaza Series. As part of the 13-15 work plan, the Commission designated $20,000 for the performance series, and from June through November of 2014, 13 grants were awarded to provide free performances in a variety of styles. 10 performances took place at the Brand Library and Arts Center, 1 at Central Library, and 2 at St. Mark's Episcopal Church. The series attracted over 1,000 visitors, and there is now a remaining balance in the program of $7,600. The series and the call for artists will be in partnership, as it was last time, with the Brand Associates, who have agreed to sponsor additional performances as part of the series, so the series could run through the entire summer from June to September. The selection committee previously included Chair or Commissioner Dare Hovhanessian, and it is recommended that Commissioner Dare Hovhanessian and 1 other commissioner be selected for this particular selection committee. As recommended by the Commission at the November meeting, the staff will be exploring alternatives to the staging to accommodate what were the standing room only audiences. Approval of this recommendation, like the last one, will allow us to move forward prior to the discussion and the approval of the 14-17 work plan, which is anticipated in the fall of 2015. So with that, I'll open it up to questions and comments.
Commissioner Shurikian.
Okay. Give us a time schedule. When are we expecting those 6 performances?
They would start on June 5th, and then, as in the last series, every Friday night, 6 Friday nights, beginning on June 5th.
Can we expand to 8 Friday nights?
Certainly can.
I mean, we have enough fund. If we even allocate $1,500 per performance, we still have enough money to spend and have enough money to spend for the staging or any other arrangement we need to do. I'm coming up with a number almost $14,850 based on $7,600 that we left over from the last summer concert series, and about $7,250 with the the unforeseen fund.
So now you're saying up to 1,500 per performance? Because
Yes.
in the past it was up to 1,000.
1,000, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm suggesting for increase the fund, and also that will also increase the performance number from 6 to 8.
So that would be, my calculation, maybe you said this is $12,000?
Roughly,
total?
yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And in my numbers, we still have enough money. That's how I see it, yes.
Using the discretionary fund and
Yes.
the balance?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Dahavanasian?
I would like to suggest that we'll keep it from 500 to 1,000, but we would have more performances, that we would give more chance to the artists in the community to participate, and we would have more participants in the event. So that way, since we went with 500 to 1,000, let's keep it for this year's project the same. And then in the future, if we think that we need to upgrade the amounts, then we could discuss it back again. So it is the same money, but more performances rather than upping it up to 1,500 per performance.
Commissioner Lee?
I would comment on the same, because the way I would see it is if I was already an artist that already performed, and why am I getting less? Whoops, sorry. Why am I getting less than next year's performance? Unless there's something added that we're requesting, longer hours or longer time or something like that.
If I recall, the 500 to 1,000 was we left it to the artists to let us know what their costs were, or we didn't set out any specific criteria about what we were expecting for a certain amount. Is
Yeah,
that
my
correct?
memory is in the proposal, they said
What their budget was, basically.
budget, yeah.
Commissioner Shirikian?
In my mind, there was at least two elements that will implement on this $1,500 increase. For example, the setting was right in the courtyard at the entrance of the library, whereas if we want to do something different next year, I was suggesting to have the setting a little bit different. So we might spend a little more money on preparation and the staging, whereas we didn't have that expense last year, last performance, number one. Number two, the groups that they were performing, which were, everybody was nice and very good, they were limited between 2 and probably 7 people. I mean, some of them were very small, some of them were very large. Not very large, but large enough. With this kind of program, we can add, number one, the performance time from 1 hour to maybe 2 hours, because that will be a real concert instead of just a small showcase. Number two, the quality of the music might make a difference. And three, the location. We were thinking of changing the venue area. I mean, in the same library setting, but in a garden type of thing. So that $1,500 might apply all those expenses, and that will help, of course.
Commissioner Dahavanasian?
Well, if we want to use it for the setting, as we discussed thoroughly last time, that maybe we could have the slope for people to sit and the performance to be down, like an amphitheater. For that to spend more money, I do understand and I'm okay with. But as far as the performances were, since, we are following with the same project, I would still prefer if we would keep it within, I know we could have it for 2 hours, but for 2 hours we need to have more accommodations. To sit on the grass for the thing is not the same as if you have an amphitheater that is ready for that performance. To have the acoustics for a larger group for that they perform, we need to do justice, and that is much more expensive. So with whatever we have and with whatever we have discussed, absolutely, if that extra money would be spent for the staging and for accommodating, that is perfect. But as far as for the artists, I would hope that we could keep it within the same pricing. As also, it's a kind of a respecting the community artists who participated, that nobody is kind of more or less, and we kind of give the same kind of a treatment to the performers for this round with phase 3 as well. So if the money is spent for the staging and helping them to perform, that is fine, but I still would go with the quality that we chose was very good. It's a special kind of a performance. So yeah, we can invite people from Italy to come and perform and etc. That is horrendous expenses, and we cannot afford. We are talking with our little money that we have. What was performed and what was done was phenomenal. So let's keep it to that till one day hopefully we'll have an amphitheater and we would spend much more if possible, or we would have sponsors who do that.
My understanding is that the funding we're talking about for the performer. So unless because of a change in location they were required to bring in different amplification or different things that would increase their costs, otherwise the location is a little bit moot to me in terms of the allocation of funding, not knowing the details of it, just personally. I have a question for staff. Do you recall for the responses that we received from the artists in the last round for the performing arts, did we get a mix of those that came in at 500 and those that came in at 1,000, or did everybody kind of budget higher? I'm just kind of curious whether we were already pushing the limit, or people said, yeah, there's 1,000, but I really only need 750, or I really only need 200, or whatever it might be.
I think there was a mix, and it obviously worked out because we were within our budget, but yeah, I think there was a good mix.
That was my recollection.
Could I add to that? Since I was in that committee, based on the conversations we had, since the artists knew that the limit goes from this amount to the other, so they explained their expenses, and then when we made the decision, we also considered that for the money requested and the kind of performance that they were going to put on with great experts in our committee. So we came to that decision, which groups to go with the money that they have asked. Because, again, budgets are very limited. So we have to be very careful in whatever we decide.
For myself, I have to say that I'm inclined to agree in the end that if people are perceiving this as a single program and we change the pricing, I think that could be seen as unfair, but I don't know whether the public perception so much is if it's another summer. So in their minds, they're not be thinking, oh, but this was part of this past 2 year, and so to them it's another series, and so I can kind of let go of that a little bit. But I also can see a need for some higher. And I've heard this from folks too about having a little bit higher amount available if somebody has more performers, or they're paying some of their performers, and then we also have the folks that are just maybe a one-person group and they don't have as much of expenses. So, but what I would need though is some sort of guideline, I guess, that went out in the call for artists in order to say if we can understand a $1,500 request. Because the personnel costs are more, because it's a group over amount. Or I want to understand a little bit more about how we were deciding what's a $500 request versus a $1,500 request.
Could I answer to that? Well, having in mind that we already knew where the performance was going to be, having in mind that what is possible within that balcony or whatever veranda area that we had for the performance, we had all of those in consideration. So if in the future the area, and again, if there's a larger number, I do understand that if there are many performers, you need to pay more for each one of them. But that also depends on having experts on the field. Not me. I'm a great music appreciator, but I'm not the person who goes into the detail. And it was decided that the area is not accommodating for larger crowd of musicians, or as I said, for the acoustics, for the sounds, because for that we need a more permanent kind of an establishment to be able to provide or to promote that kind of an art in that area. So lots of details, artistic details, as far as the performance and the possibility and the reflection and the sound and the light was considered when they came to that final decisions about the thing. But if we could accommodate them, that is true. If we could have larger groups and we could have them present in the way that it is expected, then definitely, then in the future we should ask for more money and we should accommodate that. But with the possibilities, even if we go down the slope and having all that, with the possibilities, still we are very limited as far as what we could have it there, because it is horrendous expenses if we want to accommodate, let's say, a nice choir, performing choir, large choir, or an orchestra sitting there and performing, because the backing and the sounding and everything has to be technically taken care of, and that is much more expensive. So with the possibilities we have at the present time, I do believe that we are doing very well, and still that 500 to 1,000 is fine, unless the accommodations that we need to provide for the performance would need extra money, then we can consider. And if within a smaller, I'm not talking about 40 people in the band, but if it's a kind of a medium-sized band, or if it's a group that they're performing, if they are kind of a little bit larger number, yes, we could consider that 500 extra if you were talking about.
Yeah, because I can imagine not even necessarily just in size or payment. We have union performers, you have non-union performers, you have folks that are coming in from out of town that might have costs associated with travel or with equipment. There's every type of group, and it's not all just music. It can be any type of performing arts, and so those costs vary. What if there was interest, and we're kind of split about whether going to the 1,500, but what if it was maybe two contracts that are good up to 1,500 for groups that really express that, and all the others are then the 500 to 1,000. We don't have a lot of money to play with anyway, but...
Could I say something? What you're saying, let's say if you are going to use one of the churches for kind of performances...
Well, for this, but...
For the same event, because we had some of them at the Brand Library and we had some of them at other locations. If it's a closed locations that accommodates that kind of a performance, I don't see any reason why we can't go over the
$1,000.
1,000. Because then the location is already there, but it is extra people involved in the group that they are performing would be kind of getting the money.
Which should be for the next discussion for the next plan, as opposed to, because since this is all for brand, but then when we start going into the plan for the fall, our next budget, then we can be looking at these other sites.
2015 to 2017.
But we still do use other sites.
We do, but not for this funding, because we're talking about just the brand.
Just the brand, okay.
Yeah. Commissioner Sharikian?
No questions regarding the budgeting at this point, but at least I would like to give my opinion regarding the guidelines. The summer program was basically all performance musical and 1 or 2 dance. I would like to expand that options and go into poetry, only dance performance. So I would like to suggest the staff to have a little more diverse type of performances and not just musical performances.
Right, and I think that's part of the RFP. I mean, we were open to any kind when it went out. It's just what we received back.
Okay.
So part of it might be in how it was articulated, the association of the brand with music, perhaps. We had talked maybe, I don't know, I think there's too little money to do it for this personally, but in the next round, talking about maybe, do we want to divide it up and say we want to fill 5 poetry, we want to fill 5 music, we want to fill 5 dance, and be a little more specific when we have more money to play with. I'm not sure that the 7,000 is, I mean, we could, but it doesn't seem like one of each. I don't know.
Well, we can try. And it depends what we have received based on
agree,
that. Yeah, we can try.
It's great to have more diversity, for sure.
That's all.
Commissioner Sagan?
Yeah, I think poetry would be a very good option for that space. And I think somebody reading poetry or something, or spoken word, would cost much less. So I think you could certainly use that in a way that you could balance it with the music. And I think I'm not sure how the RFP went out, but they just said 500 to 1,000. It's capped at 1,000 essentially. Is that how it is? Yeah?
Used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was incumbent upon the proposer to show what their budget was and why they were requesting one or the other, or what they were requesting.
I don't see an issue with upping that cap, and then you balance whoever, if you get somebody suggesting something really interesting for $2,000, then you can do that. And then smaller things, you could have more diversity in your programming. If it makes sense for the budget. I'm not sure what the budget is.
Could I say something to that? it's an excellent idea. But as far as the type of performances, based on what we received, first of all, and the quality of what we received, but also it was the technical issue again, that with music and poetry, yes, the sound, people can be on the trees or behind the trees or down on the grass and might not see the performer as much, but can hear it. With the performances like dances, it is the audience needs to see it. So that was considered as far as the location was of how well we can express that. And also for other kind of performances, we don't have the proper staging, so people could go and change clothes or do stuff. So the type of performance also was kind of in relevance to the location and what the location offers. So in the future, as I said, if in collaboration we could have other areas, not for this summer, but for if we could work with other theaters or with other kind of spaces, yes, definitely our hand is kind of, we have more choices, we can do much more. We have a wider arena to choose from the forms of art expressed and the artists. So then we could talk about different budgets.
So going back to refresh my memory, because I can't do math in my head. I am a true artist. So it was the 7,600 is what we're working with, and we're proposing six performances being proposed because that will fill out the season with the partner at the.
Well, I also heard the possibility of 8. So are we settling in on 6 or
maybe to go to 8 if there is more money coming in from the other.
So but it would still be coming from our pool. So if it's 7,600, we're working with what is it per if we divide by 8? Can somebody do that for me?
What was the average?
Almost $800.
Almost 800.
What was the average for last season? They had 6. Were they like 6,000?
No.
Yeah, if I may, Commissioner Deaver, commissioners, there were 13 performances. 12 came in at $1,000. One was supplemented by the brand associates, because that was a much higher cost, and one came in at $600. So pretty much, if I were in an organization, you can say 500 or 1,000. I would say 1,000, and make a pretty good argument for that 1,000. So that's it seemed to me, and I wasn't involved with the production there, but that's how it washed out.
Sense.
So if we run it again, we run 7 at 1,000 and 600 for that one. So then that will run that will run the 8 performances.
Yep.
Commissioners, we are exploring the notion of a variety of performances, not just strictly music or the type of music that was there the last time. We've also talked to the Parks Department about getting a stage or maybe a dance floor. That might work. There is some cost involved, and even Parks can't tell me, yes, on that particular date I can have this stage and our staff to build it and take it away. So there's a lot of ins and outs with the staging, especially at Brand Library and the Plaza. We did find that if one of the groups was inside, it kind of ruined the performance because nobody could see them. Everybody came to expect an outside performance, and you couldn't get quite as many people into the gallery, but worse, you couldn't see them, and you couldn't hear them outside. So the staff and I at Brand have looked at how to re-envision the plaza, put people up above and look down on it, put them out in front of the grassy slope. Again, it's not built for that, so it may be uncomfortable. I don't think I'd want to sit out there for an hour, but we're looking at those, at least for the next work plan. What your funding here will do is bridge the gap between this fiscal year and the next. Those performances started in June and ended in November, late November. Most of them coming June, July, August, and September, every Friday. So whatever you come up with will get us started in June and into July at Brand Library.
In answer to your question about the average, I don't do math in my head, but the average doing the
Somebody does
calculations
math here, yeah.
is $950 per performance. That was the average in the last 13 shows, performances.
I mean, what about comedy, like stand-up comedy? There are lots of comedians in our community. I mean, this would be like a great setting for them, even to start up somebody who's starting out.
I think what we're going to do, what we will do if this is approved, is go back to the guidelines and make sure that we reinforce the fact that we go beyond music, poetry, comedy, whatever it is that is considered a cultural event. So we will definitely review the guidelines and make sure it's all inclusive, if that's what you agree to.
But I mentioned something. With comedy, it's great. Since we are on a kind of a city-owned location, comedy comes usually from the politics or other family circumstances that might not be as much kind of educational for the whole family at large, because they come at that situation. They came with their kids, they came to the park, all ages and grandparents and etc. So kind of to perform with that idea is great. I love comedy, especially stand-up comedy, but we had to go through a lot of different loops to see that where we are presenting it and for which audience. And there was kind of other issues that we had to have in mind. So we could definitely keep in mind for other performances, and we can support it in different area. But in a kind of a park situation, as a family situation of all ages, we were very careful in what we choose and what was going to be exposed.
And to give a little bit more background, so that the brand was identified. Otherwise, performers could offer their own location that they wanted to present it. So it could be an organization that already has a theater and they want to present something for free to the public. It could be an artist that says, I've got a partnership and I can do it in a private business, or it could be on city site. It's still city funding, so I understand it can get sensitive, but absolutely, I think it's much diversity, and we're hoping for more next year. And particularly when we get into the plan for the next coming year, we can talk more about how we can help to encourage more specifically the diversity of the performing arts fields. So let me ask, in an effort to kind of get us on a path. I've heard we started with the 6 performances that were recommended. We've heard up to 8. 7 would give us around 1,000 per. Are there preferences with regard to the number? Do we want to try to expand beyond that 6, and would be a little bit less perhaps for some, maybe making it more equivalent in terms of maybe 1,000 for everybody across the board, or up to? Commissioner Lee?
I would check with staff first. Would we be able to accommodate more Fridays on?
Yes.
Normal Sundays, what would be a max?
I mean, I would suggest continuing with the Friday night Plaza series for this round. I mean, we can talk about more coming in the next work plan, but on this one, I'd stick to the Friday nights, based on what I know is going on at Brand and all the other activities that are planned up. They've already planned their calendar, except for this particular item. They were awaiting your approval.
So are we saying we can go to 10 Fridays, or if we suggest 8, is there a problem? That's why
No, there's not a problem with 8. I'd have to go to the calendar to see how many Fridays in the summer there are.
So 8's okay, but what about 10 if we want to up it, or?
Well, the other item, or the other part of this, is that the Brand Associates also sponsored some of the Plaza series, so it was shared between the commission and the associates, and the associates have already said that they would like to. However, the associates expended less per performance than the commission did. I think they went up to $500. So if you chose to do more performances, that would allow them to up and equalize with what the commission is offering, if that makes sense.
But otherwise, it was basically a 12-week series.
We're
doing 6
weeks. Yeah, 6 and 6. Yeah. No,
okay.
You're right.
Yeah, so that was the summer series.
Question, did I get it right? We're going to start in June and run September, October?
I think it ran through Labor Day weekend, or maybe the weekend beyond Labor Day.
That's correct.
Give or take.
So if we were to fund more programs, but maybe less of a less high, not speaking very well today, the putting the cap being a little bit lower, it would allow then the associates to either fund more towards their performances as opposed to maybe making it much longer on either end, maybe by a couple weeks or something.
Which I would recommend.
Because I can already foresee, I think people will like Chinese acrobats, contortionists, and they'll be below about $500 range. They're willing to do it. So I'm going to have them make sure that they submit RFPs, because I think that would be in addition to the program and funding.
So is anybody feeling clear about their their preferences enough to put something on the table here with regard to this item of recommending approval for
I just want to
allocation?
put okay. I just want to put some numbers and the plan. We're starting with $7,600 remaining from the previous summer program, and we do have additional $7,250 from the unforeseen funds. We are combining those two, and we are going to organize or suggest the new summer series. Is that correct? So total of $14,850 we are trying to allocate for
So you're
this.
looking at capping, we've
Cap.
capped at the 25
Yes.
for the discretionary,
Yes.
the remaining of the discretionary plus the 7,600.
Another way of looking at it might be that we'll budget whatever we think is appropriate here, and then we'll make sure in the utility boxes that we won't spend
More, okay.
more.
The program will run at least 8 performances, or up to 8 performances. I think at least it will be a better idea.
Could I, if we get about 14,000, we could go up to 12, and
I
we
know.
could have 12 weeks, so
Exactly.
3 months.
So,
The way we did, 1 month, 1 week less. So
okay, so at least
sounds
8
better.
is on the safe side. Is that, we're clear on that? Okay, and the performance options, you guys heard us from acrobatic Chinese group to poem reading, magicians, whichever. So we have wide variety of options right here. Okay.
And then in terms of capping per performer,
We'll keep it between $500 to $1,000.
and
That's what I heard. I mean, that's
Unless-
what I've heard too.
Unless more is needed for the,
Technically.
for accommodating the performance. That means if they need more of lighting, they need more of microphones, they need more of this and that, they need a special stage, because if dancers come, we have to set up a special stage for them. And that needs crew, and that needs, the kind of flooring. So if we go from 500 to 1,000, and if we have about 14,000, I do believe that that gives us a leeway to choose performances that would need the proper flooring and the staff to put it back. So that is what we need to consider if we want to have different performances.
So would the funding, though, go to the performers for the additional? Because I'm a little uncomfortable with that much vagary, I guess, in how that be presented. If the library, if staff wanted to make available, through your research, like we want to be able to make the staging available, it's going to cost us more. I'm wondering if it would make more sense to be paying into a fund that supports the program in a different way than giving it directly to the performers.
May I make a small
Actually,
explanation?
first, Commissioner Osaka.
Yeah, if I have a performance that I need a stage and it's going to cost me $3,000 to do it, I won't apply to this RFP because it's maxing at 1,000. So if we want to accommodate people who are going to do that kind of thing, we should max it out. We could take up to 2,000 or whatever. So, if you want to get those kinds of artists, you got to raise the maximum such that they do show up. They do apply to the RFP.
Could I say something
Actually, I'm
by
going to
experience?
go for Commissioner Shirikian.
Okay, sorry.
Just want to bring an example. During last summer, when we had the flamenco presentation, the dance floor was an 8x4, a plywood on the floor, which I felt like we could have rented at least 10x10 for probably $300-400 and at least accommodate the performer there, and that will make a better performance for the dancer. So I'm not talking to allocate the money to the performer themselves, but to the technical part of it. So we can have a special dance floor for that one specific performance, or I don't know, speaker, something more microphone technical thing for a specific violin performance or poem reading performance. So I'm talking the additional money to keep it on the side. We can expand that money as needed to each performer technical part of it, not to the performer
on an administrative standpoint. And I just want to clarify first, is that an appropriate use of the funding to be able to make that kind of allocation as it's been approved?
Yeah, it is. I think the disadvantage is that it would be on a rental basis, and so it would only be a one-time advantage. So one other thing you might consider is just running this program the same way we did last summer. And then in the next work plan discussion, if we do decide to continue this series at Brand Library or any other venue, and we want to purchase something that can be used on a continual basis, that might be a better way to do it. You would have to decide whose decision it was to rent this additional equipment. Would it be the selection committee? Would we have to bring it back here? So it does present a little complication this time around. But I definitely think it's a conversation that can be had during the discussion of the work plan.
Thanks.
Yeah. Commissioner Darvanasian?
Mine was in the same line. After we find out exactly what the budget is, I think we need to sit and also with the city staff and our legal staff and to find out what is more appropriate. Should we be the one who provide and accommodate the performance venue, or is it better if we would have the performers to come up with that? So that is a decision that we have to first make, and to make sure that we have established that. Then we can go from there on, because if we have the space to save, let's say, the platform or different performances, or is it more beneficial to have our staff? Because sometimes legally it might be that on the safe side, we would like to know that our staff are setting up the stage rather than something is set up and something happens while there was a performance. So there is a lot of technical and legal issues involved in that part of a decision. So after we have the money, we can discuss for this term and then maybe for the future as well, because if we see that it goes as well as it went last summer, then we could decide on if we are expanding it and etc. So it is a major, yes, it is very important. 90% of what was decided was all based on how we can accommodate and how we can be perceived, because to have the presenters is one thing, to choose it's not as difficult, but to know that within the accommodation what could work best. And again, each time I talk about our staff and Mr. Blair, and I talk our Commissioner Kevanyan, they were so well informed about the prices that artists ask for different performances, So that helped a lot for us to make a wise decision, because they knew that for that kind of performance and that level of an artist, what is the kind of approximately kind of what needs to be spent. So that made it much easier. So we might even, in our committee, we can invite also people that they are very good and expert on that technical part as well, including Mr. Blair, because that's a very technical decision. But as far as diversity and more kinds of performances, absolutely. We would love to have, we need to be very educational, because it is on the premises of the city. We need to have more cultural things so people would be introduced to different cultures and different flares and flavors. And it was aimed to do so, but we need to first accommodate the technical part.
Commissioner O'Shagan.
We should probably just stay with the plan that was done last year. It seems like that's the best course, but probably in the future, you could have two different budgets. You have a stipend budget, plus you have a materials budget. So if there's a group that has something, they need material, they need to set up something so that they can do something more interesting, then that's also looked at and determined with the whole budget in mind, not just the stipend for the performers.
Agreed. So we had on the, preliminarily on the table, a minimum of 8 performances with the 500 to 1,000 moving forward as we did with the last program for this next series, utilizing the funding from our current budget. Is that still?
That's clear to me.
Do we have a motion?
Yes.
I haven't.
And I second it, so.
So Commissioner Sherekian has made the motion and Commissioner De Hovnanian has seconded that. It is a yes.
Chair Deaver and Commissioners, and the motion would be recommending to City Council
yes.
the 8
Yes.
performances.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Again, we always forget that.
Yeah, almost self-corrected right as he clicked there. Great. So I think if we need anything else, we talked about who's on the committee.
And I have been given advice again that I failed to agendize that, so we can't decide that today, but you as chair can appoint someone after the meeting. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Great. So those that have an interest, please let me know.
Definitely.
Perfect. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioners De Hovnanian?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Oshagan?
Yes.
Sharikian?
Yes.
Chairperson Deaver?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 5A3, motion approving commissioner appointments to the selection committee for the mini park gas station program.
Chair Deaver, Commissioners, it's recommended that the Arts and Culture Commission select a commissioner to be on the selection committee for the temporary art display in Community Services and Parks Adams Square Mini Park Gas Station Call for Artists. In November 2014, the Arts and Culture Commission approved a recommendation for the temporary art display in Community Services and Parks Adams Square Mini Park Gas Station policy and a related temporary art display agreement, a call for artists, and a proposal form. The policy offers 3 annual display opportunities for artists or art groups at the Adams Square Mini Park gas station. And the goal is to schedule the first exhibition in April 2015. The approved Adams Square Mini Park gas station policy requires 1 member of the commission to be appointed to the selection committee. Additional members of the committee include library, arts and culture, and community service and park staff, and a community member. The committee will be responsible for reviewing submissions and making a recommendation to the commission on the best qualified artists. And there is no cost associated with this report.
Thank you.
Can we appoint?
You can recommendation? Sure.
I would like to recommend to have Commissioner Deaver Chairperson Deaver for that, because she's very familiar with that special location. She has been very involved with that community, so she would have a better understanding, I believe, than the rest of us. We would love to help her in any way if she needs us, but I would like to have her to be the person who would represent our commission.
And that is of interest to me. If it's of interest to others, I would welcome that.
I will second that motion.
Put out a motion first. Well, I appreciate that. I would be interested in doing that. So may we have a motion, please?
Oh, I usually don't like to make motions because it's long and it's complicated. That's why I always second
you
it.
You could just read it.
So the idea is I would like to recommend and appoint Chairperson Deaver to be the person representing the commission for the Adams Square's mini park exhibition.
I second it.
Roll call, please.
Commissioners De Hovnanian?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Oshagan?
Yes.
Sharikian?
Yes.
Chairperson Deaver?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 6, Commission staff comments.
Commissioner comments? Commissioner Lee.
Go you first.
We're starting on this end this time.
Well, just want to wish everybody happy holidays, and we'll be back in motion in January to work on our new budget. Oh, did we need to discuss the, oh, it wasn't agenda, it's the special meeting?
Well, I would like to continue with the same idea. Happy holidays to everyone. We had a wonderful year last year. We did a lot. I'm so proud of our library and art and culture department and the commission for all the decisions made and for all the work done. I would like to thank our lawyer here, Mr. Grant, who has kept us, in line because there are so many legalities, and he reminds me in a very gentle manner with a nice smile because it's very important, because now we are in the part of the policies much more than the other, and that is an area that is very much appreciated. We have had changes in our department, but it was done very well, very smoothly. We moved on. So happy holidays to our beautiful and wonderful community. Thank you for all the utility boxes that are so gorgeous and everybody is talking about. Thank you for all the performances and everything that has happened in the city with the help of our staff. So happy holidays to all of you.
Commissioner Sharakian.
A few months ago, I announced that I was invited to a performance done by Armenian Fairy Tale, which they have another performance coming up in December, on Tuesday, December 23rd, and Sunday, December 28th at Alex Theater. And they asked me to invite every one of you. If you would like to, please contact me and I can reserve a seat for you. I'll be there and enjoy this Christmas concert. On thanking and wishing happy holidays to everybody, I would like to extend to everyone, to our staff, library staff, Cindy, Mike, Chuck, and also the city employees that they put some of those programs for us, which we don't see them, and we want to extend the happy holidays to them. Fire and police department, that they keep our city safe and guarded. And also, we always forget those people, but I think for my heart, and they're true heroes for me. They're the armed forces overseas, that they truly, truly protect our freedom and art to express ourselves in this beautiful country, and especially city of Glendale. And finally, best wishes and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to City Council and City Mayor, and Armenian Christmas on January 6th. I would like to extend to everybody and congratulate too. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Shagan?
Yeah, I guess I would also wish everybody who's watching and staff and the commission, I'm very happy to be here. I wish everybody happy holidays, and I look forward to working with everybody the next year to make something new happen in Glendale in terms of the arts and culture. Really, it's a moment, as I said earlier. I think that we should seize the moment and try to make something really new and bright and different for our city.
There's staff comments. Ms. Cleary?
Yeah, we would like to, and you may have received the email already, but we would like to call a special meeting in the beginning of January to start that discussion about the 15-17 work plan. We gave you a couple of dates, January 8th, January 9th, and January 12th. And so if you can respond to Ms. Martinez with your availability, then we'll try to find a time where everybody's available, and we will go forth with the next work plan. And, oh, I should say, happy holidays to everyone.
Can we choose any time? I mean, because 3 dates in the morning or afternoon?
Yeah, just give us your availability except for I think the last day that I mentioned, we're only available up to 5 o'clock. But we can do evenings too on the other 2 days.
And for my part, I can't express it any better than my fellow commissioners have in terms of my gratitude and my well wishes for the community and for our city. And it is quite a pleasure, as always, to be in the city of Glendale and to see the wonderful things that are happening, and grateful for this past year. So happy holidays to all. Next item, please.
Item 7, written communications.
And we have none. So with that, we are adjourned.